Hi, it's Mike Del Signore here. In today's video, I want to talk about what you need to bring to the Board of Appeals if you're trying to overturn a suspension. I'm Mike Del Signore. I handle many cases in front of the Board of Appeals, registry matters, OUI cases. In today's video, I'm going to discuss what you want to do, what you need to be prepared for this hearing. So right now, the Board of Appeals, it is kind of a long wait to get there. But once you get there, you want to have the right stuff. So let's say you're suspended for OUI. Let's say the common OUI situation where you might find yourself in front of the Board of Appeals is you crashed, it was a one-car accident, you were brought to the hospital. In those situations, there's not going to be a suspension for refusing a breath test or failing a breath test because you weren't offered one. So the office is probably going to send an immediate threat to the registry. So you'll be off the road until you can get that resolved either with the registry directly or more commonly with the Board of Appeals. So what you'll want to have is you want to have evidence that you've gone to AA, you've done a substance abuse evaluation. So even if the case is not guilty, the board members, and it's going to be a 3-member panel, they're going to want to know that you're doing well, that you're safe to drive. They're not going to care if it was not guilty or even if it's guilty. Really, the board wants to see that you've taken proactive steps to deal with the alcohol issue. So you crashed, there's alcohol in the car, the board thinks there's a problem regardless of the outcome of the case. They want you to do AA, they want you to have a substance abuse evaluation, and they really want to hear that you're not drinking, that alcohol is not doesn't have a role in your life. It's not a factor anymore, that you've dealt with it, and they want to hear about what you do for work, your family. They want to hear that you're moving forward with your career, and that you're taking responsibility for what happened, regardless of the outcome in court. And I think that's the key thing. Sometimes people think, you win the case in court, the board's just going to give you your license back. And that's not necessarily. Certainly, if you win the case in court, it goes a long way. You can maybe go to the registry and get your license back. But it's still not the last word. The board always wants to see people proactive. Let's say the case is still pending and you haven't had a trial, then those proactive steps are going to be key to get you back on the road. So that's an OUI alcohol case. You want, and I'll just recap it again, you want to do AA, you want to do a substance abuse evaluation, you want to have somebody say that you're not a threat to the public, and that's what they're looking for. Let's say another common situation where you might find yourself in front of the Board of Appeals is, let's say you're charged with OUI drugs. And this is a situation too, you might have crashed the car, been brought to the hospital. In an OUI drug situation, these cases are very winnable now at trial. OUI drugs, it's hard to prove somebody's under the influence of drugs because the science really isn't quite there for them to determine whether you're under the influence of it or not. So there's a lot of not guilties in this type of case, but the board is still going to want to see that you've done a substance abuse evaluation and you have negative drug screens. So they want to, so they're not going to necessarily care that you got the not guilty on the case. That's fine, that's helpful, but it's not the last word. They're going to want to know that you're not using drugs, that you've dealt with a problem, and they're going to ask you these questions. So the Board of Appeals sometimes will ask people things. It's not a criminal case where you can exercise your Fifth Amendment. You're looking for your license back, and that's technically civil. Now, you don't have to say anything to them, but people will be prepared. I prepare people for some of the questions the board will ask, and typically it's, have you stopped drinking, or have you stopped using drugs? They kind of want to hear it from the person, and they're very good at sort of detecting people that are serious about recovering, moving on, and people who aren't. So you always want to go to these hearings. Right now they're on Zoom. They're on a Microsoft Teams app. It's kind of like a Zoom. But eventually they'll be back in person. So whether in person or on video, you want to be well dressed, very respectful to them, and show that you've taken this process very seriously. So the board is a 3-member board. There's a representative from the AG's office, there's a representative from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and there's a representative from the Division of Insurance. So it's a 3-member board. You'll also have somebody from the RMV who will oppose the suspension and will make an argument or a pitch to reinstate your license. And generally that is that you've dealt with the issue, you've gotten treatment, that you need to drive because there's a hardship to you, your family, and that you're working and you're basically a productive member of society and want to move on from the suspension. These suspensions are generally quite long, so by the time you get to the board, you're probably going to have been suspended for a fairly significant portion of time. So if you have questions about getting your license back after an OUI, alcohol, or OUI drugs, feel free to call me. My name is Mike Del Signore. Handle Board of Appeals, license matter, OUI cases all over Massachusetts. It's what I'm known for. You can call, text anytime at 781-686-5924. I'll be happy to help you.